Now, I know that when we were here, we brought some school kids here and you did a demonstration. And one thing that you mentioned several times is, hey, try something that's hard. You know, just go and try something that's hard. And that is the total opposite of what most of them are hearing today. It's like, if it's hard, I don't want to do it. If I'm going to fail, I don't want to do it. So that's what you're kind of breaking down. And what are some of the results that you see on some of the young people you deal with, especially, but even adults? How do they start to change when they start breaking down that mindset?
So this whole fear of judgment or fear of not succeeding, I think people's phones and social media have really poisoned them.
Okay.
Because, and I think I shared a quote with you that day, which is, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And I really think what's happening to youth and adults as they sit on their phone and they compare themselves to everybody on TikTok, everybody on Instagram, and they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they're not pretty enough, they're not athletic enough. And so they're condemned to the life that they have because they don't have all these other things that everybody else has. And so because they fundamentally lack self-confidence because they're comparing themselves against things that aren't even real. And then you have this artificial world where people you don't know and don't care about you have the right and the place to comment in your life, which they shouldn't have. So those two factors working together, this comparing yourself to everybody else and strangers basically commenting into your life, they reduce you to this insecure person that can't do anything.
Yeah.
The question you asked me was, how do I see the mat, jiu-jitsu changing who they are? One is they can't have their phone on the mat. So they're squarely living in reality. They're living in the present. And what jiu-jitsu does for somebody who is overly confident, thinks they're the man, you know, firstborn child and they're the golden kid and everything, you know, happens because at their word, everything happens.
Right.
They get, 10-year-old boy comes on the mat and gets choked out by an 8-year-old girl. He's not the man anymore. She is. He has to deal with that reality.
Right.
And that process, without any lecture, humbles him because he had to deal with reality that he is not who he thought he was.
Okay.
And on the other side, if you take an 11-year-old girl who's maybe 20 pounds overweight, slumped shoulders, low self-esteem, doesn't really talk much. You put her on the mat, and after 3 or 4 months, she is not the fastest person on the mat, but she's using what God gave her, because usually kids that aren't real physical have to use their brains more, and so their problem-solving skills kick in, and she's winning some matches. What that does to her, again, without lecture, she now sees success in a physical sport, and what that translates to is real self-confidence, because I don't think I can do this. I know I can do it because I just did it. I just dominated this athletic girl, and I'm not athletic.
Okay.
So what it does, the process of jiu-jitsu, it humbles the people that need humbling and builds up the people that need their self-esteem built up. And it's all done in a very natural way without judgment. We don't sit around and make fun of the overconfident kid for getting beat, and we don't overly glory in the gal that's overcome this. It's like, hey, good job, and we move on to the next thing. So again, we're teaching them to live in the moment. So that process over time,
right,
it kind of, everybody's human. If everybody's honest, they're always going to be a little self-conscious. They're always going to be a little concerned with what other people think about them.
Sure.
But it's done in a very real way, where now it's not this phobia that prohibits you from living your life or doing the next thing. You know, a good example is I have kids here. They're afraid to take off their shoes because they don't want anybody to see their feet. Okay. They won't take their socks off.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's a perfect example of a made-up fear in their mind, but it paralyzes them.
Yeah.
I've had kids come. They come for 2-3 days. They'll sit on the sidelines because they won't take their socks off.
Okay.
Then when they realize nobody really cares. You know, it's just this one small step to getting out of your own head.
Sure.
And from dealing with kids and adults for the past 14 years, most people are way too much in their own head. Even believers. Believers, it's the fear of man. And the other thing they do is they separate, there's two categories in their mind. Things that God can do and things that God can't do. God can save me from cancer if I pray, but God can't fix my marriage. You see what I'm saying?
One, you would think the other one would be easier than the hard.
Well, you think when catastrophic things come, everybody turns to God.
Right.
Because now you're not in control. You need to turn to God because who else can save you from cancer?
Right.
But then you'll see somebody that's been in the church for decades and their marriage is not really good. And instead, they want to go and be the head usher at church, or they want to go and be so-and-so.
Right.
Because they can't handle the fact of going home when they've lost the respect of their spouse.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's something that's insurmountable,
Sure.
which is interesting.
Very, very much so.